taking a closer look with Preacher Nello.
Greetings, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to another study of a verse in the scripture. Proverbs 18, verse 16. Taking a closer look at this passage. You know, the first time I heard this passage, it was repeated or said by a very influential, popular speaker or preacher, one whom I admired and looked up to and learned so much from. And so it's a passage that I heard him use. And it was well spoken, and I have used it many times in my own exhortation, preaching, etc. And the verse is Proverbs 18, verse 16, which says, and I'm going to share this passage with you from several translations. But the most popular King James says that a man's gift maketh room for him and brings him before great men. And so I have always understood that passage to mean that your gifting, your talents, your inherent gift, whether it be the gifts of the Spirit or your natural talents or abilities, will open doors for you, will create opportunities for you. In fact, that was the context in which I heard the preacher say it. And I have accepted that without qualms, because it's a person who I know is influential and he um, studies his Bible, reads his Bible, and so on. However, just recently, about a week or two ago, this passage came back to my mind. And I felt compelled, and I know when the Holy Spirit is leading me to do something, I felt the compulsion to go and look at the word gift. And I was surprised by what I discovered. So we are going to look at the verse. We are going to do several things. One, we are going to look at the verse in several translations. We are going to look at the particular word gift. We are going to look at the context of the passage. And remember, I always say to us, if you take the text out of context, you con. You're left with con. You're tricked. You're fooled. And yeah, dare I say, you fool others, you con others. And I certainly don't want to be fooled or conned. And certainly I don't want to do the same to others. So we're going to look at the verse in several translations. We're going to look at the particular word gift. We're going to look at the context of the verse. And we're going to examine some commentaries from persons who have um, commented on this verse. So let's get right into it. So the New International Version reads, or NIV, a gift opens the way and ushers the giver into the presence of the great. The New Living Translation reads, giving a gift can open doors. It gives access to important people. The ESV, or English Standard Version, says a man's gift makes room for him and brings him before the great. The Berean Standard Bible, one of my favorites, a man's gift opens doors for him and brings him before great men. The New King James Version reads, a man's gift makes room for him and brings him before great men. Now let's look at this particular word, gift. The Hebrew word is matan, matan. And it means a gift, it means a present. And it is derived from the root word natan, which means to give. It's a verb which means to give. So notice right away you are realizing that the meaning of the word has little or nothing to do with having a particular gifting. The Hebrew word, and this is these definitions and explanations, are found on BibleHub.com. You can search them for yourselves. The Hebrew word matan primarily denotes a gift or present. It is used in the context of offerings, tributes, or any form of giving that signifies generosity or obligation. The term emphasizes the act of giving as a voluntary and often gracious gesture. So it is the matan means a gift, something that you give. It's a present. Looking at the cultural and the historical background, Bible Hub continues to share that in ancient Israelite culture, gifts were an essential part of social and religious life. They were used to express gratitude, honor, and allegiance. Gifts could be presented to God, kings, or individuals as a sign of respect or to seek favor. Note that word, that phrase, to seek favor. The concept of giving was deeply embedded in the covenantal relationship between God and his people, where offerings were a means of worship and acknowledgement of God's provision. All right, let's look at the context. And beloved ones, I want to emphasize, I always emphasize this, and I will continue to emphasize, don't just read the verse alone. Read the verses surrounding it. So I went to look at the verses before and after, and I realized something. I realized that there's a string of verses which have a common leaning, a common theme, a common direction. Let's look at those verses from 15 down to 19. The heart of the prudent acquires knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge. A man's gift makes room for him and brings him before great men. The first one to plead his cause seems right until his neighbor comes and examines him. Casting lots causes contentions to cease and keeps the mighty apart. A brother offended is harder to win than a strong city, and contentions are like the bars of a castle. When I looked at these verses, I observed something. The common theme I am seeing here has to do with making decisions between parties who have a contention. It appears to me that it is talking about court cases, being able to choose, to decide who is right and who is wrong. Notice the idea of contentions is mentioned twice in verses 18 and 19. And it is talking about prudence, wisdom, knowledge, and so on. Cross-examination, bringing one's cause. The Bible often uses that word when you talk about bringing your cause. It means bringing your case before a judge. Notice what verse 17 says. The one who pleads his cause seems right until his neighbor comes and examines him. Look at the context of the verses again, and you will see the pattern. So in verse 15, the heart of the prudent acquires knowledge. The one who sits to judge, the one who sits to make decisions, have to have prudence, wisdom, discretion. And he has to have an ear, a wise ear, to use the knowledge that comes before him. And I recall King Solomon, right after he asked the Lord for an understanding heart to judge his people. Right after that, the writer brings up a case that demonstrated that Solomon had received answers to his prayer. You remember that story? The two women who came, one whose baby died, and the other a living baby, and they were contending over the living baby because one rolled over and killed their baby in the night and exchanged the babies. And so they brought the case before Solomon, And Solomon listened keenly, and he used prudence, wisdom, discretion to make a decision. Let me hop over verse 16 for a while. We're going to come back to it. The first one to plead his cause. So the first one comes and he runs along and brings his case or her case before the judge. But then afterwards, another person comes and counterclaims, examines him, questions him. We see that happen so many times in courts, don't it? Especially when you watch some of those law movies. You realize that a person is so convincing when they are being examined and questioned by their own lawyer. And when you listen to the answers, you say, yes, this person is innocent for true, really innocent. But then the cross-examiner gets up and said, did you say so and so? But so and so, and they begin to ask counter questions. And you begin to wait, oh, wow, I didn't look at that. Wow, this person don't seem so innocent after all. The first one to plead his cause seems right. How many times have persons come to you with a story? How many times have somebody come to you and said, why, this situation, I have a contention with this person, and they will present their case. And let me tell you something. We have a way of presenting our case to make ourselves look good. We are not going to say exactly what we said. We are not going to say it in the same tone and mannerism in which we said it at the time. So we're going to paint ourselves good. So the person will come to you and they will present their case to you to win your favor. But then when you hear the other party's side, then you say, oh my God, you are realizing that you may have thought this person was so honest and the other party was such a villain. But then all of a sudden you are realizing that there's another side to the story. So look at verse 18. So when the judge is unable to decide, what he does, he casts lots. In those days, they cast lots. And many times, the Lord seems to have directed the lot. And I think of one example where Saul was chosen to be king and he was hiding, and they cast lots and it fell on Saul. Even though and remember, he was already anointed by Samuel to be king, but he was hiding. And when they chose lots, it was he who was selected. Achan, he was guilty, and Joshua was told to cast lots. And he cast lots, and the lot fell on Achan. Yes? So it would appear to me that in the Bible, it is clear to me, let me say it that way, that the Lord often used this method to reveal his mind, his will. So here the writer is saying, basically, if after you have heard both sides of the story, the judge has heard both sides of the stories, and he cannot make a decision, casting lots causes contentions to cease. Because those people in that culture, they really believe that God spoke through the lots. And so casting lot, once the judge cannot make the decision, and they cast the lots, wherever it falls, it's accepted because it is believed to be directed by God. And it keeps the mighty apart. Those who are mighty in contending, those who are about to knock fists, it keeps them apart. Look at verse 19. A brother who is offended is harder to win than a strong city, and contentions are like the bars of a castle. In other words, what do the bars of a castle do? The bars of a castle, the columns, the main post that holds up the building. If you hit that down, everything is going to come crumbling down. In other words, if you hurt somebody, if you destroy their trust, the entire relationship crumbles. And so someone, going back to verse 16, someone can easily present a gift in secret, flattery, bribery, to make room for himself, to bring him into the company of others, to win favor with the person who is making decisions. And so it brings him before great men of power, so that he is given favor in the hour of judgment. Yes? Yes. Let's look at a few commentaries, some of whom will agree and some of whom will slightly differ. So, for example, Dr. Tony Evans has a commentary on this verse. He says Solomon has condemned bribes, evil gifts that pervert justice. And he gives us Proverbs 15:27 and Proverbs 17:23. But that's not what he's talking about here. He's simply acknowledging the fact that expressions of kindness can open doors that are otherwise closed. True, true, but I put it to you that the context here has more to do with perverting justice. Here is what Proverbs 15:27 says. Whoever is greedy for unjust gain troubles his own soul, so his own household, but he who hates bribes will live. Proverbs 17:23, the wicked accepts a bribe in secret to pervert the ways of justice. So you pervert the ways of justice. And the Bible often, Moses warned the children of Israel in the law, not a leader should not take bribes. Oh, how many of us have suffered at the hand of leaders and decision makers simply because they took bribes. To our ignorance, we never know that they did, but they did. And so we are wondering, how come they can't see that I am right? Something has gone awry. Let's look at another commentary here. This one is from John D. Barry and others. He says the Hebrew word used here, matan, differs from the term for a bribe, shokad. Here, the gift is meant more innocently to appease or curry favor. Now, you tell me, if somebody is trying to appease or to curry favor a person's judgment, isn't that, you would call that, would you call that innocent? I am not so sure that that person is innocently giving a gift. Innocently give, which is one of the reasons why in the court of law, jurors are asked not to discuss the case with people. They are not allowed to have contact with persons who are involved in the case. And we have heard of situations where some cases have to be thrown out because some party made contact and even sought to bribe members of the jury. Yes, up to recent years, we have seen that happening. Look at Proverbs 19, verse 6, which I reference in this commentary. Many seek the favor of a generous man, and everyone is a friend to a man who gives gifts. Now, think about it. So the writer here is saying it's not about bribe, but it is, to me, bribery. If you are going to give gifts so that you may have friends in high places, so that in the hour of decision, you will get favor. That's curry favoring. That's bribe. Proverbs 21:14. A gift in secret averts anger, and a concealed bribe, strong wrath. It's right there. So it is a bribe. It is a bribe. Let's go on to another commentary. This one is from Albert Barnes. The gift or bribe by a bold personification, meaning you're making the gift seem like an actual person, appears as the powerful friend at court who introduces another and makes him welcome in high places. Bribe. Your gift makes room for you, put you in the company of powerful people who will stand with you when you are in a bind. J.I. Packer and others. These proverbs, and he's now remember, as I said to you, I went and I looked at the verse and I saw that verses 15 to 19 seem to be a grouping together. And here I found a commentary, I found two commentaries, in fact, that also groups these verses, or group these verses together. These proverbs can apply to many settings. Here, they seem focused on the courtroom. A judge must have an intelligent heart in order to acquire knowledge about a case, as verse 15. A man's gift, a bribe, interferes with justice. because it gives access to powerful people. Verse 16. Wise judges hear all relevant testimony. Verses 15 and 17. They let the Lord settle cases that seem unsolvable. Verse 18. They realize that family disputes can often be vicious. Verse 19. Let's look at another commentary, and this one is from the well-reputable Matthew Henry, and he's commenting on verse 16, and he writes, of what great force gifts, that is, bribes, are he had intimated before in chapter 17, verse 8 and 23. Here he shows the power of gifts, that is, presents made even by inferiors to those who are above them and have much more than they have. A good present will go far. One, towards a man's liberty, a man's gift, if he be in prison, may procure his enlargement. There are courtiers who, if they use their interest, even for oppressed innocency, expect to receive a gratuity for it. Or, if a mean man know not how to get access to a great man, in other words, mean here doesn't mean stingy, it means man of low status. So if a mean man, a man of lowly status, know not how to get access to a great man, he may do it by a fee to his servant or a present to himself. Those will make room for him. Ooh. So it go far as towards his preferment, huh? Meaning he's preferred in the decision-making process. It will bring him to sit among great men in honor and power. See how corrupt the world is when men's gift will not do even, sorry, let's go again. See how corrupt the world is when men's gift will not do, though ever so great. Nay, will gain that for them which they are unworthy of and unfit for. And no wonder that those take bribes in their offices who gave bribes for them. In other words, you gave bribe to get where you are and you will receive bribes too. It happens, so much corruption. So much corruption. I was watching a movie just a couple of hours ago, few hours ago, earlier this afternoon. It's a movie series, and I was watching one of the episodes, and there's a known criminal, very high class criminal, who has been helping the lawmakers solve some cases, handing over criminals to them. But he makes his own demands and live a very high life by those demands. And when one of the senior officials refused his offer, he basically threatened him by a piece of information that he knows. So when the senior official went to his juniors and decided to pursue a particular case, and they said, okay, now that that criminal is willing to work with us, and the gentleman says no, he's not going to work with you. He's working with the other person that he normally works with, even though that official had just put her on leave. He had to call her back. So when they said to him, but chief, he said, it's okay. It's okay. Why? Because that man had him ticket. And the man was going to blow his cover, was going to reveal things that he didn't want to be revealed. And so it is that sometimes persons who have taken bribes to get where they are will also take bribes, who have given bribes, sorry, to get where they are. They will often take bribes to keep their position. They will take bribes from other persons. He that bought law can sell it. Hey, let's look at one more commentary. And this one comes from the English Standard Version Bible commentary. And again, like I said, this commentary also strings those 5 verses together. These proverbs could be applied to many settings in life, though here they seem to be particularly focused on a courtroom setting. In hearing a case, one should seek with one's heart, reason, emotions, and will to acquire knowledge, and likewise with one's ear to listen carefully to what is being said. For this is the way that the wise person seeks knowledge. So you listen to get information, to get knowledge of the case. You listen with a wise head and you listen with a wise ear, and you even ask the right questions. One reason for this is the danger of bribery, which is condemned in 15, Proverbs 15:27. That is, because of the gift that makes room for him, providing access to the great. Thus, the warning of chapter 18, verse 17, not to be easily swayed by the person who states his case first. Rather, the wise person examines the evidence in a careful, probing manner. Still, in some cases, it is impossible to reach a verdict because the matter is hidden and there is not enough evidence to make a well-informed judgment. In such cases, verse 18, it is better to settle quarrels by means of casting a lot before the Lord, thus leaving the outcome of the Lord's in the Lord's hands, rather than allowing powerful contenders to do violence to each other. Hmm. Even so, whether by means of a lot or judicial determination, the reconciliation of one brother to another, that is, reconciliation of close friends, is difficult to achieve. A brother offended can be more unyielding than a strong city, for the resolution of quarreling meets with resistance like the bars of a castle. It's hard to win that person. All right, so I think we get the point. Did you? That when it speaks of a man's gift, making room for him, it is not talking about your giftings, your talents, your abilities, your natural abilities that will create opportunities, job opportunities, ministry opportunities, and so on. Which is, as I said before, which is the context in which I heard the preacher use it, and I have been using it in that way because I have never really sat down and examined the meaning of the word, the context in which the verse was said, and additionally examine other commentaries. I hope it is clearer to you now as it is extremely clear to me that it was not talking about your giftings, your talents, but speaking of the fact that through gifts, giving of bribes, the course of justice is often perverted. And we know it happens in our very little island and across the world. It happens so very often that judgment is given in the favor of one person or one party over another because that person has the ability to give a bigger gift, to open even doors for you to experience other things. And so you give that person the right, while the little man, the little woman who has no large means to give is shunted and robbed of what is rightly due to them. May God help us as believers not to find ourselves in that category of persons who either give a bribe to pervert justice or accept bribe for that reason. And, and may God give us the wisdom that if someone, and those of us who are in leadership in whatever sphere, church, home, work, wherever, government, May God give us the vision, the wisdom, the insight, that if someone comes to us and gives us a gift, that the Holy Spirit will give us a discernment. What is the real purpose behind this gift? And if for some reason the Lord shows it that this person is seeking to have their way and not to follow the course of justice, may God give us the strength and the grace to say no. And if you have already accepted it, give it back. Give it back so that your judgment is not clouded. God bless you. Walk good and think on these things. Take care.
Subscribe on YouTube.